Hey, so in today's guide, we are going to be talking about the Cleric. Now, this is the class I have the most experience with in terms of like actually sitting down to play. Played a Cleric over the span of like 3 or 4 years. It was Sir Hammond, Warforged Forge Domain Cleric, and he was a lot of fun. This class is hyper flexible. Your subclass is really going to define what your role is going to be. The different subclasses here, I mean, you've got a lot to pick from, but they do more so than I think just about any other class. Cleric's general loadout is somewhat of a healer support, but your subclass is able to define you as something of a maybe frontliner or blaster, or Cleric's subclass identity is kind of all over the place. But this is a class that you can play that is extremely easy to slot into just about any role in the party, but it has the strength of coming with probably the most impactful healing magic out of any class in the game. There's a couple terms up front that I'm going to be talking about that might sound a little bit confusing. Go check out my Barbarian video or my Playstyles video series if you're wanting some more explanation on that. This is going to be your zone, your role in combat, and your roleplay dynamic. All right. So first off, what is informing us about Cleric's zone? Now, Cleric has a different sort of mechanic that happens with their first level where their subclass kicks in, and this can actually completely redefine all three of these things. Basic Cleric class loadout is going to give you a D8 hit die and proficiency with light, medium, and shields. This is telling you right now you're really comfortable in the midline with this D8 hit die, as well as not only light armor, but medium armor and shields. You're not going to be struggling to get up into the front and probably stay up there, especially because you're going to have access to spells like Cure Wounds. With your weapons, you're going to get simple weapons, tools, none, saving throws, wisdom, and charisma, with wisdom being your strong save, charisma being your weak save. Your skills, you're going to be able to choose 2 from history, insight, medicine, persuasion, and religion. With your equipment, you can choose between a mace or a warhammer if you're proficient with it, scale mail, leather armor, or chainmail if you're proficient with it. And let me pause this right here. The reason why they do this is because your divine domain may give you proficiency with martial weapons or heavy armor, right? And it's not universal. Not all subclasses are going to get these. With martial weapon proficiency, this is even more reinforcing that yes, you are supposed to be up in the front line. If you get chainmail, definitely you can almost sub as the party tank. In fact, that's what I did with Sir Hammond. From there, you can choose between a light crossbow and 20 volts or any simple weapon. You can choose between a priest pack or an explorer's pack, and then you get a shield and a holy symbol with any cleric loadout. They progress as a full wisdom caster. They're going to get 3 cantrips here at first level, as well as 2 first level spell slots. The way that cleric prepares their spells is actually probably the best in the entire game. You prepare the list of cleric spells that are available for you to cast, choosing from the cleric spell list. When you do, you choose a number of cleric spells equal to your wisdom modifier, plus your cleric level, minimum of 1 spell. The spells must be a level for which you have spell slots. Now here's the really strong thing. You can change your list of prepared spells when you finish a long rest. Preparing a new list of cleric spells requires time spent in prayer and meditation, yada yada yada. What this means is that unlike other casters that have to have their spells known, for you, it's just you can swap them out in your spell list. When you finish a long rest, you get to prepare what spells you know. This is remarkably strong. You're not limited by a number of spells you know. This makes Cleric one of the best spellcasters in the entire game. They also get ritual casting, and you can use a spellcasting focus, yada yada. I want to go up and talk a little bit about the Cleric spells here, but just with them being a wisdom caster, your skills, like the synergy that's kind of happening in here, I think that the Cleric kind of leans into being either the party heart, maybe the party guide. You might be able to roll up Cleric in just about any roleplay dynamic, really. You can really build a Cleric to be whatever you want it to be, so it's why there's jokes in the scene about the Amen, a team of nothing but Clerics going in, and they're really viable. They're actually pretty hyper viable party compositions. But anyways, so let's go over and talk about some of these cleric spells, the cantrips in particular. Guidance. Do not ignore guidance. We were talking about the strength of bardic inspiration yesterday. This is essentially like you're giving them a pseudo proficiency in a way. But even if they get proficiency, they still get the D4 that they can add on top of this. This is an extremely strong spell and almost a little too spammable in my opinion for a cantrip, but it's here. I haven't heard of anybody really crying to like get this one out of the game. I think the guidance is just more so everybody else is going to rock a little bit harder because you're in there giving them this guidance. Now, from there, light, if you don't have dark vision, pick it up. Otherwise, it's a shenanigan cantrip. Mending, this is also a pretty shenanigan heavy cantrip. It maybe if Wizards of the Coast put a race in the game that gets healing through mending, then it's possible that this is going to become pretty decent. Resistance, this is a pretty tempting one just on the name alone. It's a duration of 1 minute and it requires your concentration, which like self-casting, if you're going to frontline, not super great. If you're going to backline, I kind of worry that this concentration restriction here is going to be just not all that effective. It really keeps the spell held back, in my opinion. But you touch one willing creature once before the spell ends. The target can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to one saving throw of its choice. I would normally really like this because it's almost as if they're getting pseudo proficiency in the saving throw. But the problem is, with it requiring concentration, it doesn't seem like this one really plays out all that well. The concentration requirement, Cleric might not be totally pent up on like, getting bogged down by concentration and all that, but like this spell just doesn't really feel like it's ever played out all that well. Sacred Flame, you're going to need some damage. You're going to be one of the only sources of radiant damage in the entire game. This is a great one to pick up, and the kicker on this is kind of whatever. The target gains no benefit from cover from the saving throw. Certain DMs are going to be more tactically planned around like trying to use cover and everything, in which case this is going to be an amazing cantrip for that. Otherwise, it's just pretty meh. It also has this weird caveat of like, if it's behind total cover, then you probably can't see it anyway, so you can't target it with this. So there's an odd hang up in there, but it's a reliable source of radiant damage. This is one that you should most likely be picking up as a standard MO on any damaging cleric. Spare the Dying is actually really solid if your subclass builds into it, like in the case of Grave Domain Cleric. Then being able to cast this at range is pretty absurd. It turns into a situation where like the entire party is just sort of like whack-a-mole. Like the enemy is going to have a really hard time taking down a party whenever you've got a Grave Domain Cleric able to cast Spare the Dying at range. Like, yeah. Thaumaturgy, this is holy prestidigitation right here. This is a lot of shenanigans. I think even within the first or second episode of Critical Role Season 2, Jester was using this one to basically just be this awesome pranks. It's a great shenanigan cantrip on a class that otherwise doesn't seem like it's totally trying to inform you to be a like shenanigan type character. Yeah, you go Trickery Domain, this should probably be on your basic loadout. Toll the Dead. This is probably the strongest damaging cantrip that Cleric's going to get access to, not in terms of all-out potential, but just in its effective use. I feel like more people have done damage with, or rather, there has been more damage done with Toll the Dead than the next spell that's going to come up, Word of Radiance. The fact of this is a D12 damaging cantrip, as long as the thing is missing any of its hit points, like, don't ignore this one at all. So Word of Radiance, this is a spell I would really love to make work out very well. This is one, though, that I would only pick up if you are building a frontline heavy cleric. You go Forge Domain, Twilight Domain can pick this up and make it work, absolutely. War Domain could probably make this one work out. You utter a divine word and burning radiance erupts from you. Each creature of your choice that you can see within range must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 1d6 radiant damage. Constitution saving throw is a fairly common saving throw for enemies to get proficiency in, though. So I think early on this helps with minion clear. If you want to be that just sort of holy bomb that runs in there and it could be pretty all right. It's a 3.5 damage right here on average. Up at 5th level, it becomes 7 damage on average that you can dish out to all these things. 11th level, we're talking about 10.5 on average. And then up at 17th level, we're talking about 14 damage on average. So it's a little underwhelming. I think there's better things that you can be doing with your action, especially for something that's as risky as this right here. I also think that there's it's odd that I think that these ones that require you to go up and get into the front line like this and do this AoE, it feels like they need a buff. They just don't really play out all that well. But yeah, those just some heads up there. Now, first level spells, just some real quick recommendations because there's very few what I would consider bad spells on this entire list. Bane and Bless are both decent pickups. I think that Bless just overall is going to be a little bit more effective than what Bane is going to do for you. Ceremony, this is a roleplay spell. It's a cute roleplay spell. Command, this is sick. Pick this up if you get the opportunity to. This is action economy denial in a way that the creature is going to have a pretty hard time overcoming. This is one of the only charm-like effects that does not rely on the creature being immune to the charm condition or whatever. There aren't really a whole lot of great defenses against this other than the fact that the creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw. This is an absolutely ridiculously strong first level spell. Do not ignore command. Create or destroy water, really great in survival heavy campaigns. Cure wounds. Boy, this needs to be on the basic cleric loadout right here. This is like the core bread and butter healing spell of 5e. A creature you touch regains a number of hit points equal to 1d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. This spell has no effect on undead or constructs. Cure Wounds, out of combat, in combat. This is extremely potent. Cure Wounds is also a defibrillator. If you've got a buddy that's making death saving throws, boom, you can just do this and get them back up, right? The entire class loadout is somewhat built around this spell. The fact that you have to touch the creature means that Cleric had to be a midliner. They wanted to give you some safety, so that's why they give you some of the armor proficiencies over there and yada, yada, yada. If they were trying to build out like a squishy kind of, backline priest healer or something like that, which maybe new class idea, I don't know. If they were trying to build out something quite like that, then the class would have had a d6 hit die, it would not have gotten armor proficiencies, and this would have been able to be cast at range, right? This can come in so clutch, more so than just about any other spell. Cure Wounds is incredibly impactful. Don't brush this off because you don't feel like playing the healer, all right? Like, this is even good for you because you are a creature you can touch. So, just pop, anyways. So, yes, Cure Wounds. Detect evil and good. Detect magic. Detect poison and disease. Guiding Bolt. If you're going to play a Blaster Cleric, pick this one up. This is, wow, so much damage that you're dishing out with a first level spell slot. And then the next attack roll made against the target before the end of your next turn has advantage. If the rest of your party just decides, I'm not going to hit it, guess what? This is going to synergize with itself. This requires an attack roll. If nobody else does it, you can just wombo combo it with this right here. And here's the crazy thing. Because this is a ranged spell attack against the target, this can crit, okay? This spell is so strong that I know people that are in the design scene that try to build archetypes around this spell. Incredibly evocative kind of a spell around like maybe starry magic in a way. I love what Guiding Bolt wants to do. This is one of my favorite spells. I never ever regretted casting Guiding Bolt. Because even in the situation that nobody is giving you follow-up, it's still going to synergize with itself or something else you want to do with your turn. Like, yeah. Also, if you get a spiritual weapon later on, note that if the target takes this damage, your spiritual weapon is going to have advantage on the attack roll if you're using it to follow up with this. Like, Guiding Bolt is just such a great spell. Healing Word, talked about this a bit with Bard, the fact that this is a bonus action cast at range. This was leading some people in Adventurers League to ask Wizards of the Coast to potentially ban this spell because it's really hard to kill a party that's got access to Healing Word here now. Cure Wounds is great, but the fact that it requires an action meant that it was not really favored in terms of like a quick revive, right? Healing Word was a thing that kind of outclassed Spare the Dying. So people just didn't really see a mega big reason to go over and pick that one up. But with Healing Word, it actually influenced Grave Domain's design because they give you the Spare the Dying cantrip and allow you to cast it as a bonus action with a range of 30 feet. So this is giving you part of the strength of what happens with Healing Word, just not quite giving you Healing Word, right? It was actually a pretty clever and graceful way that they designed that. Inflict Wounds, especially if you're going with a frontline cleric, just pick this one up. This one is probably the best striker spell for a cleric right here. You make a melee spell attack against a creature you can reach. On a hit, the target takes 3d10 necrotic damage. The damage potential that you get here and the fact that it scales up so well and necrotic damage is actually fairly uncommonly resisted, Inflict Wounds is pretty impactful. Protection from evil and good may not be one that you're picking up immediately at first level unless you know for a fact that like this is going to be a thing that's going to kick in the campaign. This is a very, very strong spell, but it is situational and that it only applies in the event that your buddy is being possessed by an aberration, celestial, elemental, fae, fiend, or undead, but they can't be charmed or frightened or possessed by them, right? Like, this is a very, very cool spell. I love what the spell wants to be. It just feels like it's way situational, but like, if your domain gives it to you, you're not going to regret having this spell there. This is one that, because of Cleric's flexibility with their prep casting, try to get some information as to like what you're coming up against in the day, and then like maybe go on ahead and slide this one in. It's actually pretty nice. Purify food and drink. This is mostly, role play. Sanctuary. Oh man. You ward a creature within range against attack. Until the spell ends, any creature who would target the warded creature with an attack or a harmful spell must first make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature must choose a new target or lose the attack or spell. The spell doesn't protect the warded creature against area effects such as the explosion of a fireball. If the warded creature makes an attack, casts a spell that affects an enemy, or deals damage to another creature, the spell ends. Okay. This is, if you've got like an escort mission coming up, oh boy, this is a really great one. If you know that one of your buddies is going down in combat, this is also a fantastic one to cast on them. If you got a buddy that's making death saving throws and you can't really get to them real quick, this is a way that you can bonus action cast this on them to where even if something is trying to coup de grace them and, get rid of 2 death saves, this could come in pretty damn clutch. And then lastly, as far as the first level spells go, and these are about the only ones I'm going to get into on this one, but Shield of Faith, a shimmering field appears and surrounds a creature of your choice within range, granting it a +2 bonus to AC for the duration. Just some interesting interactions with this one. Note that it's 10 minutes. It does require your concentration. You're most likely not going to be using this on yourself, but, you can if you would choose to. For some reason, this is allowing you to target the enemy as well. So I just thought that was interesting on this. I don't know if there's some combo that makes that actually worth doing, but yeah. Shield of Faith, another great one. Do not skip out on it. Also at first level, you're going to get your Divine Domain. This is your choice of subclass. It's going to grant you features now, then immediately at 2nd level, and then again at 6th, 8th, and then 17th levels. So Cleric is very, very front-loaded, and their subclass structure is pretty nice. Like, Cleric gives you so much in the first 2 levels of play. Starting out, like, here at first level, you're most likely going to be getting either a proficiency or a cantrip. In some cases, that proficiency is heavy armor proficiency or martial weapon proficiency, or in the case of Twilight Domain, just both for some reason. And then at 2nd level, you're going to get your Channel Divinity feature, and your domain is going to build up on top of that. 6th level is usually a defensive feature. 8th level is usually always either a Divine Strike or like potent spellcasting type feature. And then 17th level is like some kind of a big Nova for your capstone. So you're also going to get domain spells. Cleric immediately starts out with 2 spells that may or may not appear on the Cleric spell list. So the domain spells are always going to be prepared for you, and they don't count against the number of spells that you can prepare each day. After their pretty insane first level loadout, you're getting their 2nd level feature, Channel Divinity. Now, Channel Divinity, essentially think about this as if you've got like 2 Channel Divinity slots that come back to you on a short or long rest, which you can use to fuel certain features that you get. The first one that you get is Turn Undead. I personally, whenever I was playing Sir Hammond, felt like I got all kinds of love out of this one, but I do understand that people believe that this one is actually fairly niche. As an action, you present your holy symbol and speak a prayer censoring the undead. Each undead that you can see or hear within 30 feet of you must make a wisdom saving throw. If the creature fails the saving throw, it is turned for 1 minute or until it takes any damage. A turn creature must spend its turns trying to move as far away from you as it can, and it can't willingly move into a space within 30 feet of you. It also can't take reactions. For its action, it can use only the dash action to try and escape from an effect that prevents it from moving. If there's nowhere to move, the creature can use the dodge action. Now, the reason why Cleric gets this right here, this feels a lot like the Frightened effect, right? Or the Frightened condition, rather. Now, with Frightened, There's a lot of undead that actually become immune to being frightened, so this is just a level of like, because I'm that holy boom, I can turn you away from you, whatever. Turn undead is actually pretty impactful as a kind of like GTFO button, but like at later levels, it can just straight up nuke the undead. So I quite like this Channel Divinity actually a lot, but I can understand that there are certain people that feel like this is just too situational to really come into play a whole lot. But note that up here, this is not restricted by CR. So this is a pretty nice Channel Divinity, I'm not going to lie. Harness Divine Power is an optional feature that you can get at second level. Let's say that you feel that Turn Undead is just a little bit underwhelming. You can expend the use of your Channel Divinity to fuel your spells. As a bonus action, you touch your holy symbol, utter a prayer, and regain 1 expended spell slot, the level of which can be no higher than half your proficiency bonus, rounded up. The number of times you can use this feature is based on the level you reach in this class. Second level, once, 6th level, twice, and 18th level, thrice. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Okay, so Channel Divinity comes back to you on a short or long rest. This is only coming back to you on a long rest. So you can't just be using Channel Divinity to keep constantly pumping and pumping and pumping your first, second, and third level spell slots, right? So this is generally just sort of universally reliable. If you feel that Turn Undead is just really underwhelming, you've got this right here to swap out instead. Or, I mean, add both, whatever. Now, also note that at second level, your Divine Domain, if you remember, is going to give you a unique use for your Channel Divinity right around this level. Going all the way up, their third level is saved because they're going to get second level spell slots. Your ability score improvement kicks on at fourth level. Also at fourth level, again, if your table is using Tasha's, you could get Cantrip Versatility, allowing you to swap out your Cantrips. This is something I just kind of let players do anyways. If they're feeling like they're not getting a lot of love out of a Cantrip, it just feels kind of meh, I'll allow them to swap it out. This is just sort of making it to where Wizards of the Coast is telling you, like, hey, DMs, be nice to your players, right? Destroy Undead. Starting at 5th level, when an Undead fails its saving throw against your Turn Undead feature, the creature is instantly destroyed if its challenge rating is at or below a certain threshold, as shown on the Destroy Undead table. This is where you turn into this holy nuke. I love this feature so much. Short or long rest refresh that you can do with this. If your DM is throwing undead minions, you're going to get a lot of love out of this. However, I do feel like some DMs may just stop, like, well, I'm not going to bother with the zombies, the cleric's just going to nuke them first round, right? In homebrew campaigns, sure. But this one in particular was really, really impactful during, like, Tomb of Annihilation and Adventurers League. By this point, like, at that point in the game, they were going up against, never mind, I don't want to get any spoilers, but there is a certain encounter where zombies are just kind of respawning, I guess we'll say, quote unquote, and the cleric is able to just basically make that challenge. It's still a hard challenge because of the monster you're fighting, but the cleric really cleans up all the minions pretty easily. Yeah, Destroy Undead, pretty sweet feature. So after Destroy Undead, you get your subclass features. You're getting spellcasting progression as you keep going up. 8th level. The reason why Wizards of the Coast put Blessed Strikes in here as an optional feature to replace either Divine Strike or Potent Spellcasting was because Divine Strike and Potent Spellcasting are trying to inform you that as a cleric, you should go with probably this particular playstyle with this lineup of features right here, right? I guess the feedback that they got was that just generally felt a little bit restrictive, so they decided to open it up instead. Now, when a creature takes damage from one of your cantrips or weapon attacks, you can also deal 1d8 radiant damage to the creature, and once you deal this damage, you can't use this feature again until the start of your next turn. This is kind of here. It's bland, and you want my opinion, yeah. I would rather just kind of stick with the idea of, like, what unique Divine Strikes could we get, or potent spellcasting features. Divine Intervention kicks on at 10th level. You can call on your deity to intervene on your behalf when your need is great. Imploring your deity's aid requires you to use your action. Describe the assistance you seek and roll percentile die, so a d100. If you roll a number equal to or lower than your cleric level, your deity intervenes. The DM chooses the nature of the intervention. The effect of any cleric spell or cleric domain spell would be appropriate. If your deity intervenes, you can't use this feature again for 7 days. Otherwise, you can use it again after you finish a long rest. So this sounds a little bit confusing, I'm sure. If your deity intervenes, so if you succeed on this, You can't use it again for a week. Otherwise, let's say you don't roll, below that number, you can't use it again until after you finish a long rest. So at 20th level, your call to intervention, your big capstone, succeeds automatically, no roll required. If you are just like, hello, God, it's me. I love this feature. I've seen the public opinion on this feature kind of swing one of either like two ways. Either one, this feature just feels like really blah, or if realistically, let's look at it like this, all right? The effect of any cleric spell or domain spell would be appropriate. If they're saying that that's our power to kind of swing with right here, boy, this is one of the most impactful spell lists in the entire game. Bringing somebody back from the dead, banishing things to the realm that they came from. I mean, like, this is a very, very remarkable feature right here. The strength of it, if we're given something to measure where we don't just have the DM like, oh, okay, the DM determines the effect, right? Yada, yada, yada. If we're just simply saying the effect of any cleric spell or cleric domain spell would be appropriate, gotta account for this being essentially like once a week you maybe get a free 9th level spell. Like, yeah, Divine Intervention is absolutely nuts. All right, and as you know, here at the end, I do a brief overview of the different subclasses, but I do have full breakdowns here on my channel. Starting out from the top, let's just go scroll down. Arcana Domain. This is a mix of Cleric and Wizard. It makes for a pretty decent blaster overall. I do feel like Arcana Domain has some potential balance issues, but overall, Arcana Domain is a pretty good pickup if you want to go with that route. Death Domain. I have not seen a player really happy with this domain overall. I feel like False Life, Ray of Sickness are both fairly weak domain spells for you to be picking up. Blindness and Deafness is a decent spell. Ray of Enfeeblement is kind of meh. You get Animate Dead, which is pretty sick. And then Vampiric Touch is alright. Their spell list overall is kind of underwhelming. You get proficiency with martial weapons. Like, the overall loadout that Death Domain is giving you, this wasn't really something that WotC originally designed to really have players piloting here, but it's available if you want to take it. I think the consensus overall is just that this is a fairly weak domain actually in play. Forge Domain, I did a pretty comprehensive breakdown on this one. I won't fanboy about it right here, but just know I played this one out for nearly 4 years. I loved every single level of it. This is hyper tank Cleric right here. Grave Domain, this is you can't kill my buddies at all Cleric. You are a more direct sort of a support with this domain lineup. Them with their, is it Circle of Mortality? Yeah, Circle of Mortality, just making it to where Spare the Dying is a bonus action with a range of 30 feet. Whoa, that is huge. You can also just negate crits with this. Oh man, this domain is so sick. Grave Domain, I'm sure you've probably seen it on Critical Role. Caduceus was playing Grave Domain. This is a pretty appealing subclass right here. Knowledge Domain, if you wanted to play like a skill monkey as a cleric, this is here. I think in more roleplay and like interaction heavy campaigns, Knowledge Domain is probably going to get a lot more love than it would at a combat heavy table. So kind of keep that in mind. You can swap out, well, I say swap out. You can proficient into the following skills right here, but then you have a feature that allows you to gain proficiency with a chosen skill or tool by using your channel Divinity. So like, you're a pretty hyper skill monkey here. I personally think that in conventional 5e play, this one is going to be a little bit underwhelming, but like in certain campaigns where you're just doing political intrigue, this could be a real clutch subclass. Life Domain, if you do want to go with the healer route, boy, this is the best way to do it in the entire game. Straight up, your domain spells are going to give you Bless, Cure Wounds, Lesser Restoration, Spiritual Weapon, Beacon of Hope, Revivify, Death Ward, Guardian of Faith, Mass Cure Wounds, and then Raise Dead. Boy, like what an impactful, a crazy impactful domain spell list. And then you get proficiency with heavy armor, and then you get Disciple of Life. People have been trying to figure out how to break this one with spells like Goodberry or whatever. Also, starting at first level, your healing spells are more effective. Whenever you use a spell of first level or higher to restore hit points to a creature, The creature regains additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. This doesn't work with Goodberry. Fight me on it. Whatever. Yeah. So, this spell's most reasonable interpretation is that the moment that you cast the spell, then it restores the additional hit points, right? That is the most reasonable way that this should work right here. If you allow it to work with Goodberry, that's on you, all right? Everything else that they're kind of getting here informs that you want to be a little bit of a mid to frontliner, but like Life Domain, oh buddy, this is such a sick, nasty domain. Light Domain is probably the best Theurge kind of a cleric, the sort of blaster playstyle where you also get access to healing magic, and yeah. Light Domain is basically Fire Domain, all right? Fireball. They get Flame Strike, which just ignore this one, all right? Wall of Fire, Fairy Fire, Burning Hands, Flaming Spear, Scorching Ray, just, oh my god. Now, the cool thing about them is what winds up happening in their entire loadout of features just makes you an insane blaster, but almost like more of a support blaster in a way. Corona of Light is probably the scariest cleric capstone out of any of them. Like, oh my god. Even here, as we've gotten some of the broken stuff that came to us in Tasha's, Corona of Light, I still feel is one of the most impactful cleric capstones of any subclass. Nature Domain has an issue where there's not really a super clear playstyle that's evoked from this domain, and that led to it feeling just generally underwhelming overall. Add to that the fact of Nature Domain also gets a Channel Divinity that feels even more situational than Turn Undead. So, like, some of the features are pretty okay, but, like, I just don't think that this domain has really been well actualized or gotten a reasonable buff as this edition has gone on. Nature Domain, in my opinion, this is one that, like, even if you wanted to take this as a flavor pick, I'm just curious why you wouldn't just want to roll up a Druid. Nature Domain just doesn't really do a great job at evoking what the archetype is intended to be, and it doesn't really mesh well with, like, trying to evoke a particular playstyle. Yeah. Order Domain can make you feel like a bit of a commander here. The first level feature, Voice of Authority, you can invoke the power of law to embolden an ally to attack. If you cast a spell with a spell slot of first level or higher and target an ally with the spell, that ally can use the reaction immediately after the spell to make one weapon attack against a creature of your choice that you can see. If the spell targets more than one ally, you can choose the ally who can make the attack. This is negotiated fairly oddly because, like, that ally can't use a reaction in other ways during the, so, like, I don't think that this feature is really well conveying the idea of I'm issuing an order. It's doing the job in a way, but it just, there's just an odd negotiation with this, and some allies maybe won't be using this reaction anyways, so I guess, like, this is just, it's here, it's fine, but yeah, I think that this one can feel pretty odd to negotiate in combat, especially if your ally just goes like, nah, I don't need to, I'm not going to take it. And then you're just going to feel like a loss of value with it. I do like the synergy that's happening with their Divine Strike and the Order's Wrath here, where once you use the Divine Strike, then the creature becomes cursed and it builds onto it into the capstone, and yeah. But I do feel like Order's Wrath is fairly underwhelming after, yeah, I like Order Domain quite a bit in terms of, like, what the idea and the concept should be, but I just don't know that this is quite it. And then we get into one of the most absurd subclasses in the entire game. I'm just going to make mention of Peace Domain here right now. This is, do not be surprised. I've said this in the past with some of the other, subclasses here. Peace, and we'll get to Twilight here in a second. These two domains are some of the most commonly banned options that I've seen just from doing the research I've done on the internet. All right. So Peace Domain, this is supposed to be a support. It steps on Life Domain's toes, and boy, Emboldening Bond and the Balm of Peace features right here. By second level, you are rolling out with just mechanically some features that are just functioning in a way that first level features should not function. This is granting you way, way, way too much. I don't allow it personally at my tables, but if you want my perspective on just like, hey, what does this one really do? This is a healer support. I think I would have rather seen them kind of piece out some of the stuff that's in Redemption Paladin and then try to get it over into here to see if maybe Peace might bite to that like chunk of mechanics a bit better, but Peace Domain Cleric is just throwing a bit too much out at you. And I know I have done videos on this one. I know other people have, so go check those out. Tempest Domain is actually a pretty awesome domain in general. Peace Domain is one of the only ways you can get martial and heavy armor here at first level. You're essentially an elemental type cleric. I don't know why people would go Nature Domain over Tempest Domain or role-playing it, or just rolling up a druid. But Tempest Domain is giving you proficiency with martial, heavy armor, Wrath of the Storm. Whenever a creature within 5 feet of you that sees you hits with an attack, you can use your reaction to cause the creature to make a dexterity saving throw. The creature takes 2d8 lightning or thunder damage on a failed saving throw and half as much on a successful one. You can use this one a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. There are multiple ways that you can just be dishing out thunder damage, and if you look right here, their Channel Divinity perfectly synergizes into that. Whenever you roll lightning or thunder damage, you can use your Channel Divinity to deal maximum damage instead of rolling. Note that you also get Call Lightning on this one right here, okay? Like, sick nasty. Just a sick nasty cleric domain. Thunderbolt Strike at 6th level. Whenever you deal lightning damage to a larger, smaller creature, you can also push it up to 10 feet away from you. Like, yeah, you want to play Thor? Look, some people recommend that you go, Storm Sorcerer. Tempest Domain feels more Thor to me than nearly anything else. Trickery Domain, this one's been getting quite a bit of love because of Jester. Yes, Critical Role definitely made this one trend in popularity for sure. Trickery Domain is getting you a lot of sort of subterfuge type spells. You're getting Dispel Magic, you get Polymorph in here, like Dimension Door, fantastic. Charm Person, like these are all pretty impactful spells. There's only like 1 or 2 issues I might say whenever I'm like talking about in Cleric, be aware of these things, or in Trickery Domain. You are dealing poison damage with your Divine Strike. I would probably swap this one out for the optional class feature that is in Tasha's. Poison, just once you get to this level right here, most creatures are going to be immune to it, just straight up. Your Cloak of Shadows and Invoke Duplicity are very, very fun Channel Divinity uses right here. They may not be extremely optimal, quote unquote, but like, man, they are definitely good at getting the just fun, ridiculous cleric out there. Like, you want to be a cleric of Loki or something? There you go. Yeah. I love the flavor that's coming out of Trickery Domain. I think that their spell list is generally impactful overall. It's one of the only like illusion-based clerics in a way. Yeah, I love it so much. And then we get to this one. Oh boy. Okay. So, Twilight Domain. This is trying to be an illusion and buffing support. And okay, this is the most broken subclass in 5e right now. Treant Monk said on his channel, by having this one at the table, the game is less fun. I will agree with him 100%. This one throws out, everything about this is S tier. They give you way too much here at first level. Not only are you getting Fairy Fire and Sleep, 2 of the best debuffing first level spells in the entire game. This one may not scale up that well, but it doesn't really matter because you're still getting crazy impactful spells later on. Bonus proficiencies. You're getting proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor. I have no idea why they give you both of these right here. I don't even, like, the flavor text that's in here is just not justifying anything about that. Eye of the Night. You can see through the deepest gloom. You have dark vision out to a range of 300 feet. The only way you can do this in the game. And then you can just share this with multiple buddies. Whatever. Like, whatever. First level. They get 3 first level features right here. The Knights taught you to be vigilant. Rework this flavor text because this is the most boring, and like this has become kind of a meme in the D&D scene because this flavor text is just nothing. As an action, you give one creature you touch, possibly including yourself, advantage on the next initiative roll the creature makes. The benefit ends immediately after the roll, or you use this feature again. They managed to give you all this, and about the only thing I would say that kind of hints on this being like the Twilight, Night Domain, whatever cleric, is Eyes of the Night right here. And even still, like, this, it could have just been your bonus proficiencies and Eyes of the Night, and I would have been like, woo! woo, that's quite a bit. But like this lineup of all three right here, and this is just, oh god. And no, this is not limited. What you can do with this Vigilant Blessing, give this to yourself, and then guess what? Twilight Sanctuary. This Channel Divinity is one of the most broken things in the entire game. You use your Channel Divinity to refresh your allies with Soothing Twilight. As an action, you present your holy symbol, and a sphere of twilight emanates from you. The sphere is centered on you, has a 30-foot radius, and is filled with dim light. The sphere moves with you, and it lasts for 1 minute, or until you're incapacitated or die. Whenever a creature, including you, ends its turn within the sphere, you can grant that creature one of these benefits. This does not require your action economy to trigger this thing turning on. After you have used this, this is a freebie thing that's going to dish out temporary hit points equal to 1d6 plus your Cleric level. You end one effect on it, causing it to be charmed or frightened. We remove the need for you to basically to prep protection from evil and good. All right. Now, note that these come back to you on a short rest. If this is up for every combat, what this effectively means is that due to the scaling right here, and the fact that there is no counter to this other than you have to incapacitate the damn Twilight Domain Cleric, what this effectively means is that the offensive CR of every single creature that's in the game has come down by an order of either 2, if not 3 ranks. The temporary hit points just auto-refreshing if your party is staying in this sphere. Like, I've heard so many people try to make arguments as to why this is okay in play. It's just not. In playtesting, whenever I've heard from people that are playtesting professional products, right, they said that you can't use Twilight Domain in playtesting anymore because this is not giving us reasonable data to turn back in. This subclass is insane. We consider this subclass to be so insanely strong, we cannot evaluate the balance of other pieces of tech in the game if you're testing it with this. Twilight Domain deserves to be outright banned. If you're a player that's allowed to take this one into a campaign, it's go for it, I guess. Like go, yeah. But this entire subclass is ridiculous, and it keeps dishing out absurd stuff at every level of play. Going on to War Domain, I feel like this one just sort of needs a buff overall. I don't think that this one is a bad archetype right now. I think it plays out fairly well. It is just worth noting that there's a few pieces of their kit that I think are a little bit underwhelming. I think with Guided Strike or like War God's Blessing and, oh god, Avatar Battle. Hang on, I'll get in on that one. Guided Strike and War God's Blessing. These are both pretty decent uses of your Channel Divinity, the plus 10 bonus to the roll. Like, I feel like there's just better mechanics to do something similar and probably more evocative than what's in here. Avatar Battle, their capstone is what? Like, you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks. This, at this level, is way too late for this to kick on. Like, way too late. I think Wizards of the Coast realized that. It wouldn't surprise me to see, like, the next version of War Domain Cleric, whatever we see. They might just do the thing where they're like, yeah, Channel Divinity, Guided Strike, and War God's Blessing. We're going to keep those on there. I don't know if they would just get a brand new capstone in here, because this is pretty... yeah. If you want to get a lot of the flavor of War Domain, and you just want something that's kind of giving you a bit more oomph in it, I would probably recommend Forge Domain, honestly. War Domain is a fairly okay domain overall, but I just feel like some people are going to be disincentivized to play it across all 20 levels. I would say if you go War Domain, it actually makes sense for you to multi-class over into, like, maybe even Fighter or Barbarian, maybe? Like, you could even say Paladin in a way, but multi-classing over into one of the other subclasses one of the other classes that gets extra attack, you know, something like that. But anyways, so that is my overview on how to play Cleric. So let me know what you all think down in the comment section below. I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon sponsors. Thank you all so much for helping me keep the lights on around here and coffee in my blood. You all are absolute heroes. And hey, if you're new here and you like a more like design-centric kind of perspective on D&D, why not subscribe? Come check out the Discord if you're not over there already. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here. I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.